Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. And today on Lest We Forget, we are going to talk about a cashless society. Sweden is the first country in Europe, including the United States, that has gone to a cashless society. Several years ago, they decided that they did not want to handle dollar bills, $5 bills, the equivalent thereof, paper money, or even coins. Everything was going to be handled economically, digitally. At the beginning of this article that I found, they spoke about that in the 1990s, there was a huge high-stakes heist where a gang bombed a locker at Stockholm's main train station as a decoy, tie up the police over there. And they raided a bank on the other side of the city. And it's considered one of the 10 most outrageous heists carried out by a gang known as the military gang. And using digital is almost the equivalent of this type of heist. In 1990s, that's what they did to sideline the police. In the 21st century, however, just for your information, Stockholm had a per capita gun murder rate of nearly 30 times that of London. And as of 2022, the Swedish police reported that there were 280,000 frauds reported in 2023. Fraud, scamming is the fastest growing crime in the country. Social engineering frauds rose from 35,057 to 47,466. And the number of card frauds increased by 44% between 2022 and 2023, according to Sweden's central bank, the Riksbank. That's Riksbank. High rates of crime hastened the switch from cash to card and online currency, as it would seem to be a more secure way of using money. The country now has some of the lowest usage of cash between 22 and 23, according to the same bank. However, high rates of crime, fraud, scamming, hastened the switch from cash to card because it was considered more secure. But organized crime and organized scamming survived. Where do they come from? Basically from Spain, are coming after Swedish citizens' cash online. This is what they do know. Many Swedes rarely use cash. As a share of GDP, cash transactions in Sweden stand at less than 1.5%, a fall of more than 50% since 2001. Along with Norway, Sweden has the lowest number of cash machines per capita in Europe, the International Monetary Foundation found. Instead, Sweden uses cards and mobile phones to make their payments. The ubiquitous bank ID, which is a security code linked to an official ID, can be used to make payments or to sign contracts. It can be used with a fingerprint on a phone screen or with facial recognition. And we have both here in the States: fingerprint, usually your thumb, and facial recognition. Because it's set up in person in a bank branch, it is seen as an unimpeachable by many. It is used more than 94% of Swedes. Another popular method in Switzerland, launched in 2012, with the backing of 6 of the largest banks in Sweden, the app has now made more than 1 billion payments and is issued by more than 8.5 million consumers. Customers send money to friends or pay businesses using QR codes. In the United States, people use QR codes for people to pay them. Remember all those commercials where they had QR codes on their cell phone and all they did was put it on the payment machine for credit cards and it was picked up and voila, they were paid. However, this has also led to a lot of fraud, scamming in Sweden. Criminals and scammers profit to the tune of £543 million in 2023 from fraud and scamming, according to the Swedish police. Online fraud and digital crimes, which is scamming, have proved lucrative, with organized gangs stealing £89 million. That's 1.2 billion. In 2023, double the loss in 2021. Common fraud / scamming focuses on the personal ID code used by most Swedish citizens. And if frauds can harvest this number, then they can easily empty bank accounts in combination with some basic personal data. Frauders / scammers can even take out loans in the victim's name, which is happening here in the United States. Social Security, personal bank information, phone numbers. You need to be aware of this, since the United States is also considering going into a cashless society. More than half of the population in Sweden has received a scam text, with approximately 1% of the sent messages resulting in a fraud, according to the Swedish Bankers Association. Spoofing, that's SPOOFING, or the practice of scammers pretending to be a victim's bank, is also popular. In 2023, the Swedish Supreme Court, Högsta domstolen, that's HOGSTA, new word, DOMSTOLEN, found that financial institutions must compensate customers who lose money when they are tricked by fraudsters pretending to be from the bank. Fraudsters no longer need to steal a physical card in order to steal the details needed to spend a victim's money. Most of Sweden's online banks now allow customers to close cards for online spending, only opening it again when they're about to make a purchase themselves. The move to a cashless society has brought a number of other issues to the fore. As in the UK, there's concern about the impact on the elderly and more vulnerable, who are more likely to continue to use cash. Other criminal schemes, including benefit fraud, have also seen large increases. The number of reported cases of benefit fraud has doubled since 2014 to more than 23,000, according to the Swedish National Council for Crime Prevention. Shoppers in the UK experienced chaos, while Sainsbury's and Tesco experienced payment failures earlier this year. Security experts have flagged that targeted malicious attacks could bring the country to a standstill. Last year, Bjorn Eriksson, a former head of Interpol, said, The Telegraph, that the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 has changed minds about how safe card payments are. He said, At first we were arguing for vulnerable people, the elderly, women in abusive relationships who rely on cash. They were handicapped about how safe card payments are. They are now handicapped by not sitting in the top positions. Now we are talking about national security, and it's not only Putin. It could also be organized crime. Suddenly, we have another type of argument, another group of politicians who are entering the scene. With fewer consumers regularly using cash, another worry is that they will get less good at spotting counterfeit notes and coins, another form of scamming. The number of fake notes submitted to the police hit a record high of 6,629 in 2020 before falling to 2,179 in 2023. The Riksbank said, as fewer and fewer people in Sweden use cash, the knowledge of what a banknote looks and feels like is decreasing, which increases the risk of counterfeits spreading. Doesn't that make you feel good? So what can you do? What are the cash protection measures? The central bank called in November last year for urgent strengthening of legislation to protect cash use in the country. In the letter, the Riksbank governor, Erik Thedéen, said everyone who needs to pay must also be able to pay. He later told Bloomberg that it was important that despite the common association of criminality with cash use in the country, the government continued to recognize that many cash users were not breaking the law. We have to be very clear that there's still honest people using cash, the governor said, and the problems have not gone unnoticed. The financial regulator was instructed to examine bank security protocols last year. The Minister of Financial Markets, Niklas Wykman, said when the review was launched, we must do everything we can to stop criminals/scammers from using the financial system to enrich themselves or finance other crimes. The Swedish government summoned the largest banks to a meeting to discuss in February fraud. And last December, the Telecoms Authority was told to crack down on spoofing. Mr. Wykman said that the banks would have to strengthen their controls and there might be knock-on effects for consumers, including delayed payments. We have been through a period of digitalization and banks are making a lot of money on that development, he said. Now, reality has caught up and the weakness in that system is becoming apparent. Other recommendations include payment limits, requiring a second authorization, and the ability to block malicious use of Swiss and Bank ID by fraudsters. The Swish website has a warning at the top reading, Swish never tracks private users by phone, email, or SMS. And how does the UK approach the fraud? The UK has not proved immune to cashless arguments either, although cash use increasingly slightly during the cost of living squeeze, numbers have been trending down steadily. There were 21.6 million consumers who used cash once a month or not at all in 2022, but less than 1 million who mainly use cash, according to an industry body, UK Finance. In 2017, more than 2 million consumers had used cash as their main payment mechanism. Globally, cash use declined by 4% points in 2022, according to a McKinsey report. The problem with fraud/scamming and online payments are not limited to Sweden. The chair of the European Central Bank's Supervisory Board said earlier that there is a real need for banks not only to respond to emerging risks, but to anticipate them as well. In other words, to protect the consumers. The UK has also struggled with increasing fraud. According to the UK Finance 2024 fraud report, more than £1.2 billion was stolen in 2023, and a similar amount was lost in 2022. It accounts for more than 40% of crime, but just 15.2% of the 178,689 crimes reported to Action Fraud in the first 6 months of 2022 were referred on for an investigation. At that time, fraud experts warned that the pace of change was leaving the door open to people who committed fraud and scams. Jonathan Frost of Vox Verite Vita Consulting said, in the pandemic, people who were accustomed to using cash or checks found themselves unable to operate in that manner. So they onboarded to online and mobile banking for the first time. This effectively increased the size of the, quote, attack surface, unquote, available to offenders to commit fraud/scams. He said that the quick growth of banks and fintechs can leave customers more vulnerable to fraud as systems are developed rapidly. Now, new fraud rules, which are due to be introduced in October by the payment systems regulator, have been causing ripples, with many smaller firms saying that the reimbursement requirements could put them under. The rules will force payments firms to reimburse victims of authorized push payment fraud up to a limit of £415,000. Companies said that the requirements would limit development and innovation, with firms hesitant to risk having to pay off and pay out if new features are also under attack. It is a chicken and egg situation, Mr. Frost said. So there you have it. The United States is not the only country who's fielding a lot of scammers coming in and absolutely wrecking a person, an older person, a senior citizen, women, or naive older teens to safeguard their money, whether from out and out stealing or scamming them out of it. Thank you very much for listening to Lest We Forget Historical with your host, Lillian Cauldwell. You can see this program all over again at youtube.com/PWR Network, PW Talk Radio. You can also find it at https://passionateworldtalkradio.com/blog. And you can also see it on facebook.com/Passionate World Radio and all the other popular social media platforms that PWR Network uses. And this program is sponsored by https://ESC73 try Ruby RUBIAI.com. Go over, take a look, and find out what the world is finding with a complete, total AI program to help you become successful, either in business and or personally. Have a great weekend.